Riverbend was a quiet town, a place where secrets were easier to bury than to uncover. It had always been this way, small enough to avoid notice, yet too close-knit for its darker truths to stay hidden. Detective Elijah Moore stood out like a sore thumb, tall, with sharp eyes, and a demeanor that screamed authority. He was the kind of man who didn't belong in a place like Riverbend. He wasn't just another passerby. Elijah was sent by the state police, investigating whispers of corruption that had quietly festered under the surface for years. The sheriff's department was at the heart of it, and everyone in town knew Sheriff Bill Carter had his hands dirty. What Elijah didn't know yet was just how deep Bill's ties went, and how much the people of Riverbend were willing to do to keep their town's dark secrets hidden. Subscribe and put on notification bell for more. Only 10% of the people who visited my channel subscribed. Please subscribe to know once we share more amazing videos. Thank you and enjoy this video. Elijah's first stop was the Rusty Spoon Diner, the lifeblood of the town. It was where everyone gathered for coffee, gossip, and the occasional bit of truth. Inside, the scent of freshly brewed coffee mixed with the faint hum of old country music. Elijah ordered a black coffee and struck up a conversation with the waitress, Talia Jenkins. She was young, with dark, cautious eyes that looked as though they'd seen too much for someone her age. "You're not from around here, are you?" Talia asked, her voice quiet but steady. "No," Elijah said, taking a sip of his coffee. "State police. Just here to ask a few questions." Talia studied him carefully, her fingers absently wiping the counter in front of her. She'd lived in Riverbend all her life, and she'd seen strangers come and go, but something about Elijah felt different. She'd sensed that he wasn't here for the small-town charm or a quiet getaway. She had her suspicions, and one of those suspicions was tied directly to Sheriff Bill Carter. "Talia, what's going on?" Bill asked, stepping aside to let her in. His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it, like a predator aware of the hunt. "I know about the photos, Bill," Talia said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Who took them? Who's watching us?" Bill closed the door behind her and poured himself a drink, his back to her. "You're overthinking things." His tone was cool, dismissive. Talia couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Bill's closed the door behind her, and unreadable. "This is not the time," Talia's voice cracked with emotion. "It's never the time with you. You said you'd protect Marcus. But you didn't just protect him. You planted evidence to keep him out of jail, and now I'm tied to you," I growled as I shook him and tried to hammer him while I pounded his sculpted leg with my fist to get over what happened. Cal trailed a bit, and tears filled his eyes. "Everything I did was to protect you. To protect us." Talia felt the walls closing in. "You didn't protect me. You kept me in the dark. And now someone knows everything. Someone is watching us, and I'm not sure I can trust you anymore." She turned and walked out, her heart racing, her mind swimming with questions. As she walked away, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was trapped, caught in a web of lies that she couldn't untangle. The next morning, Elita was back at the sheriff's office, his mind still turning over the conversation he'd had with Talia. She had seemed nervous, more so than a woman in a small town should be. And then there was Bill, always too calm, always too collected. It didn't sit right with Elijah. He had learned enough about Bill Carter to know that the man was hiding something. But what? He decided to visit Marcus Jenkins, Talia's brother, who had been released from juvenile detention after serving time for a crime that was never truly his. The town was divided on Marcus, but one thing was certain. He had a score to settle. Marcus was waiting for him, standing on the porch of a rundown house that had seen better days. The moment Elijah stepped out of the car, Marcus's wary eyes locked onto his. "You're here about my sister," Marcus said, his voice low and guarded. "You shouldn't be." "I'm here about everything," Elijah replied. "About Talia, about the sheriff, and about a missing girl from 5 years ago. I think you know more than you're saying." Marcus looked away, his fists clenching at his sides. "You don't know anything about this town. About what goes on under the surface." Elijah stepped closer, his voice firm. "I know enough to know that this town isn't as quiet as it pretends to be. I know Talia's connected to something dangerous. You need to tell me everything." Marcus shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. I can't. If I do, I'll be dead before morning." The threat hung in the air like a storm cloud, and Elijah knew the stakes had just been raised. There were secrets in River Bend, secrets that had been buried too deep for too long, and now they were starting to surface. Elijah and Talia met at Bill's old cabin near the river, the place where the missing girl had been last seen. Talia's nerves were frayed. There was no turning back now. She had to know the truth. When they arrived, the cabin was quiet, dark, empty, but as Elijah and Talia stepped inside, they found something they hadn't expected. Ethan Carter, Bill's son, standing in the shadows, his eyes wild and frantic. "You shouldn't have come here," Ethan said, his voice trembling. "You don't know what you're messing with." Talia's heart raced as she stepped forward. "What are you talking about? What's going on here?" Ethan looked around nervously, then turned back to her. "My father, he's done things that I couldn't stop. I didn't want this." Before Talia could respond, Ethan's hand shot out and he grabbed a knife from the table. It was quick, the blade gleaming under the dim light. The struggle that followed was chaotic. Elijah moved to restrain Ethan, but the boy was strong, desperate, and wild. In the chaos, Talia grabbed a nearby wooden beam and swung it, hitting Ethan hard enough to knock him to the floor. Elijah quickly bound his hands, and the three of them left the cabin, the weight of the night pressing down on them. But as Talia walked away from the cabin, she felt something cold slip into her jacket pocket. She pulled out a note that read, "Don't trust Elijah." Back in town, Talia confronted Elijah. She needed to know the truth. Everything. "Why didn't you tell me about the missing girl?" Talia demanded, her voice shaking with anger and fear. Elijah hesitated before answering. "Because I couldn't risk scaring you, but there's more. 5 years ago, a girl went missing, and the evidence pointed to your family. I've seen the reports, Talia." Talia stepped back, her heart pounding. "No, that's not possible. It's a lie." "I don't want to believe it either, but it's true," Elijah said. "The town is hiding something, and I think you know what it is." Talia's world tilted on its axis as she realized the truth. Bill had covered up not just Marcus's crime, but the disappearance of a young girl. And she was right in the middle of it all. The final confrontation unfolded at the old bridge by the river, the place where the missing girl had been last seen. Talia stood with Elijah and Marcus, the weight of the moment heavy on her shoulders. As they waited, Bill and Ethan appeared, the tension palpable. The river flowed beneath them, its murmur a constant reminder of the secrets buried within it. "You destroyed my family," Talia accused Bill, her voice hoarse with emotion. Bill's eyes were cold, calculating. "I did what I had to do." But then Elijah stepped forward. "It's over, Bill. The truth is coming out." As a sheriff was taken away in cuffs, Talia felt a sense of relief wash over her. She'd done it to protect his town, his family, but most of all himself. As the sheriff was taken away in cuffs, Talia felt a relief. Going downhill. It was even perfect for him. He had done it to protect his town, his family, but most of all, he had saved his family. But as she looked out over the river, she knew one thing for certain. In River Bend, secrets never stayed buried for long.